Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special sub-series of the Cooldown Room. We are Vicki and Emi, and this is Extra Vroomies. Extra Vroomies was born out of wanting to share our love and interest for all of the other racing series out there, whether it's four wheels or two, without taking time away from our regularly scheduled F1 talks. So we created a space to chat, and hopefully you'll join us on our little side quest. We won't be here all the time, but with the racing season kicking off, we wanted to just sit down and chat about all things that go vroom. Emi, let's start with F2 today.
Oh, F2. I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to finally get into F2 and not just mention a few things. You, Vicky, more than anyone, you have to know how excited I am about F2 this season because I've been spreading the Kimi Antonelli propaganda for like a year and a half now.
Yeah. For so long, and you showed me that picture where you like posted something. What was like March last year as well?
Oh yeah. If you go to my Twitter, my pinned Twitter is something saying like he will be a world champion. It's from like last year. Like I don't even remember when. He's amazing, but I'm just so excited. I feel like I'm gonna say he did great for the standards that he's coming from F4. I know he had like a lot of rookie mistakes, but it's his first actual weekend. Yeta is not an easy track. I'm just gonna say he's starting to get there.
Something that kind of sucks about the Kimi situation is that he has so much pressure on him. He did so well in F4, and everyone is expecting perfection out of him. He's been making some rookie mistakes, but he is a rookie to F2. He skipped F3 for the position that he's in. He's doing really well, like kind of what you would hope, but because he's not getting first place by like 30 seconds, he's not channeling Max Verstappen in F1. People are like, oh, Kimi is overrated. It's 2 races into the season. Give the kid a chance.
I feel like that pressure could, and I feel like it is playing a big role in his career now, but it's just funny to see because it's impossible not to compare him to Max on how he's like starting his road to F1. And I feel like it's Mercedes, they lost the chance to have Max and they're like, we're not missing on this one because this guy is like, he's great. But I just hope that pressure, people, and I mean fans and sometimes even like teams can be like, oh, maybe we expected more from you. You're putting this kid like was in F4. He didn't even do any driving for F3 or anything, like taking him straight to F2. It's a big jump. So I just really hope that putting all this pressure on him doesn't really do anything wrong, like doesn't take him the wrong way, because I feel like he's got it.
We could tell in his drive in the feature race that he did make a couple of rookie mistakes, but he was able to catch back up and fix that. So if he hadn't made those mistakes, instead of having to regain lost places, could he have overtaken? Like things like that. A lot of people are expecting him to be perfectly and amazing. But yeah, he jumped from F4 to F2 and he's doing pretty well.
If I'm honest with you, I was not expecting him to be P1 and winning. You have to be realistic here. Like it's his second race. I was not expecting this dude to come and like win his first F2 race like on his debut. Let's talk about sprint race with Trident and Richard. That was okay. It was funny. Okay, let me say something. It was funny because he's Dutch and people were like, oh no, the Dutch anthem again. Like, no. I was so excited for him, but then he got disqualified. Both him and his teammate, I have it here that the reason was that both cars were found to have had an incorrect throttle pedal progressing map installed. And that's why they both got disqualified. That sucks because I feel like F2 and just like every other series right now, different from F1, every point matters. 1 point makes a difference. And it's something we're going to talk about a little later when we get into F3. Because they didn't even get a 5-second penalty. They completely got disqualified. It sucks. It hurts for me because Richard is one of my favorites. I guess it's good for other drivers who got to move up to positions.
Because like you said, every point matters. They got their extra ones, but at the expense of someone else, which we are all too familiar with the F1 season. Shout out Logan Sargent and Coda. Got his first little point due to 2 disqualifications there.
Isn't that funny how now that you bring that up, that's how we ended up with that Logan Sargent tattoo.
Yeah.
All because of Charles and Lewis. But okay, that's F1. Then also I have here Franco Colapinto. This past weekend was not a good weekend for Williams. In every, I feel like in every series that they were driving this weekend, it was not their weekend. I have in here that on Thursday, both in practice and qualifying, he hit the retaining wall. He qualified P13, but for the sprint race, even though he had issues with the car, he had to take it to the pit. but he finished P13, which is not too bad, like,
No.
all in all. But then he is one of the ones who got lucky with the two guys from Triton getting disqualified because he got to move up to P11. And then during the feature race, he also did not finish. So it was a tough weekend. This is his first F2 season, and I feel like these guys have so much pressure because we know how hard it is for them to get sponsors and to get that seat. And I feel like being your first weekend, you just want to not first, but like your first few races, you just want to show how good you are, and having all these things happening to you that, I mean, you can be a great driver, but sometimes things happen, and at the end of the day, you're not finishing the race.
Yeah, you really need to set that impression at every single race, especially these first few of the season, so people know to keep looking out for you instead of putting their attention elsewhere. Most of these drivers the ultimate goal is to make it into F1, right? But we've seen this year, the grid didn't change from the end of last year. Like, the spots aren't there for people to take them. Like, there are so many young drivers that we could list off that we feel like deserve a spot in F1, but they're just not there. So they need to continuously prove themselves in the series that they're in to prove that it's worth picking them over retaining someone else, and just proving to keep them on a team instead of picking someone else. Like Arthur Leclerc last year didn't get his contract renewed. Everyone wanted him to, and he's a Leclerc, but he unfortunately didn't put in the results that he needed to be able to maintain a seat. Motorsport is so cutthroat just because the lack of spots available for people.
I feel like this year in particular, so many drivers are probably trying to do their best just because we know how many spots are going to be available in F1 at the end of this season. Like, with all those contracts expiring, they're probably trying to do everything they can to show like, oh, I deserve a spot in this team. Especially because I'm not going to say most of them, but quite a few are reserve drivers for F1 teams. Mm-hmm. So they really want to probably try to get like that seat at the end of the season. And something that I feel like it sucks for them is that, let's say they have a bad weekend. People are really quick to judge based on what they see. Just to put an example, like with Logan, like people say like, oh, he crashed or something happened. And it's like, well, but look into what happened. Maybe it was an issue with the car. Maybe it was not his fault. Like, you need to look into what actually happened. And I feel like the good thing here is that teams know this kind of thing. So they know what to look for when they're looking for a driver to get into F1.
Well, yeah, especially because a lot of the people that do have such a strong opinion, whether it's positive or negative, don't know those things. Like, they don't want to look into that. They see Logan crash and they say that he's absolutely terrible and doesn't belong on the grid. They see Kimi not finishing P1 in his first F2 race and say, oh, he's overhyped, he's not worth it, he shouldn't have taken this spot. People are very quick to judge and they're very loud about it. It's not very helpful to any of the drivers or to any of the fans.
Oh no, I feel like it was a pretty interesting weekend with like so many rookies that I support this year. Well, before they were rookies, but like so many drivers that I support are rookies this year. So I'm really excited for this season. But let's talk about something good. Enzo, his overtake was amazing.
That whole thing
I did watch
incredible.
the race and I was like, oh my God, this kid, like, hello? That was just amazing. He did great. And it was a pretty emotional win. Like, I feel like I've been watching him grow and it's like, he's so little and he's up there. Like, he won a race. I'm so excited for him.
Well, the hard thing for him is his last name is Fittipaldi. He has a family heritage that people are always going to compare him to. And his brother also races as well. So people like that are held to a higher standard just because, your family did this, whatever. So him being able to prove that, yeah, he's worthy of it and he can do it was amazing. Plus, I love seeing a little Brazilian on the podium. Shout out to
I knew you will love that.
Shout out to my mom and my Brazilian heritage. But yeah, it was great to see that and see how much it meant to him. He fully earned it because that drive was insane.
It's one of those moments when like they see the gap and they go for it and it pays off, and it was amazing. Like, it was an amazing overtake because he overtook like two drivers at the same time. Like, it was
two positions. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. But that leaves us with standings being top three being Maloney, Fittipaldi, and Hogger. We'll see how it goes. Like, it's funny to see the standings and seeing Ollie here and then also F1. Like, he has no points left. Yeah, he has like no points, and then he's P10 in F1. Like,
P10 in F1, and that just proves that people are going to take these opportunities to prove themselves. And I know we talked about it on the main episode about Jeddah, but Ollie did absolutely fantastic, and he had the opportunity and he was able to prove himself, make himself look even better for those F1 teams to hopefully get one of those seats next year.
And let me tell you, Berman is one of the drivers who I saw so many, like before the season started, so many people saying like, who do you think is going to win the championship? And a lot of people think he is the one who's gonna win. So he's up there, he's one of the favorites for sure. But we'll see how it goes. But let's get into Formula 3.
This is all on you, because my only notes on Formula 3 is that we're back, baby. It happened. It happened because they only did Bahrain, right? They did.
So for Formula 3, I don't have much because nothing. I'm not gonna say that it was a boring race. Just nothing extraordinary happened. But I do have a fun fact, and it's that the two teams right now in the standings constructors, are Trident and ART Grand Prix. And it's funny because none of them had any actual wins this weekend. Well, weekend of Bahrain. But because their drivers did like amazing, they are P1 and P2. Oh, something I wanted to mention is that Trident is a team that people were expecting great things from, just because it's the team where Gabriel Bortoleto was last year, and he's the one who won the championship. So all eyes were on Trident to see how they were going to do. Like I said, they did not win a race, but they are the P1 in constructors right now. So that's pretty great. They have 38 points after the drivers got 15, 13, and 10. That's for Trident. And for ART Grand Prix, they got 17 and 18 points. And the sprint race was Lindblad who won. And the feature race was Browning. So Browning is currently the leader in the driver standings with 25 points. So again, it's funny to see that the two teams at the top are not the ones with. I just feel like it's interesting because I feel like I end up comparing all these series to F1 all the time. And it's like, that's where you can tell how great Red Bull is doing because they stay up there. But yeah, that it was a fun fact.
Well, it proves that it's not just about wins. It's about consistency, and it's about always aiming to do the best that you can. Sometimes it's going to be wins. Sometimes it's going to be P2, P3, P4. But it's making sure that you're consistently doing well and putting in that effort, because whoever wins is always going to rotate. Yeah. So as long as you're constantly staying up there have been multiple championships won by a couple of points because people were consistent. They weren't always winning, but they were always there. They were always nearby. These people are waiting and they're hungry and they're snapping for these points. If you're getting them and you're putting in the effort, it's going to pay off in some respect.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I was just going to say that it's really interesting and fun to watch these races because you can tell these guys are trying their hardest. Sometimes I feel like, I'm not saying that in F1 they don't, but they are out there. There's nowhere to go.
They made it.
They got their seat. But I feel like these guys, when something happens, I feel bad compared to F1 because it's like, I know they're trying to have like the perfect weekend because the better they do, the more opportunities they will have later on. So yeah, once they get to F1, even if they only stay for a season, or like what happened to Nick leaving like mid-season, I feel like at least you got there at some point. You got to prove that you are a great driver because they saw in you enough talent to put you in an F1 seat. And I feel like even though if you only last half a season, he got unlucky and it sucks, but it's F1 and it is how it is. But
they can never take being an F1 driver away from him. He made it. He did it. Yeah.
Especially in the way that he got there. So I feel like that's amazing. But
the appendix.
The stroke again this weekend. But yeah.
Formula 3 races next in Australia. And that's works out well for us being, US time zones, that it's not going to be at 3 o'clock. Their race isn't going to be at 3 o'clock in the morning. The F1 race is going to be ending up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it's easier to watch the support races and kind of see the up and comers and just see them have fun. And it's also good because it's a spec series. So it's a lot of it is just like pure driver talent and seeing who really has that extra oomph to give.
Yeah. And then that weekend, we also have IndyCar and MotoGP. It's going to be a packed weekend with motorsports.
This past weekend was exhausting. And I was telling some of my non-motorsport friends, I was like, I'm absolutely drained. I'm overexerted. They're like, why? What'd you do? And I was like, well, there were so many different race series that I watched. There was F1 Academy, there was F2, there was F1. there was a MotoGP race in the middle of the IndyCar race. So I had the IndyCar race on one screen and watching MotoGP on the other one. And it was exhausting. Like, it's a hobby. We don't have to watch all of it, but I want to. Like, I'm excited. I'm invested about seeing all these different series and learning about all these different ones as well.
Yeah, I have that calendar, you know, the one I have it like it's a spreadsheet. And I remember showing it to a friend who's not into motorsports. And he's like, but like, is that something you just did for like, to have a calendar? I'm like, no, because those are the races that I'm planning to watch. And he was like, are you insane? Like, I'm like, well, look, you know,
the answer is yes.
Different hobbies. Yeah.
Yes, we are. But we're insane together, and that's what matters.
Yeah, you know how they say like crazy cat lady, but I'm like, we are like crazy motorsport ladies.
Yeah. So let's jump into F1 Academy, and let's start on a not so great note and talk about Williams being unlucky, but this time with Leah Block, who did not finish the first race, got very unlucky there, and then got hit by Lola in the Charlotte Tilbury car in race 2, but was able to not sustain that much damage, get back into the pits and get back out there and still finish decently well despite getting hit mid-race. But those races, I don't want to say like exciting, but there was so much going on in the F1 Academy races. I'm pretty sure it felt like most of the race was under some form of safety car, just because anytime something happened, someone would spin off, someone would hit someone else. I love McLaren, but Bianca needs to learn how to not cut chicanes and learn where the track is. But as you said earlier, Jeddah's the fastest street circuit, very hard street circuit. You know, they're doing their best. They're trying. And
it's their first time they race in Jeddah, so it's not an easy circuit.
We'll get them. And it's not as if we would do any better if we were up there.
Oh, you know. Oh, definitely.
Convinced not. I would start crying. I would be in my little pit box ready to go, and I would just be sobbing. So
I don't know if you've seen that video of Max where I think it's Lando that calls him asking for like, because they were streaming on Twitch and like he's calling for advice and he's like, whatever Max says, that like just like crash into everyone and like go back. That will be me. Like that will be me driving in a F1 car. Yeah, definitely. Like for Williams, it was not a great weekend. I haven't heard that Leah qualified P7 for the first race, which pretty amazing. But then she hit a curb and spun in lap 11. And then she got caught up in a collision between Lovin Foss and Chloe Chambers. So she got unlucky.
She got very unlucky, but she was able to finish the second race. So
we do have to mention that Leah is the driver with the least experience in single-seaters, though.
Yeah, because she came straight from rally. And I don't know if you've watched the Team Torque podcast that Williams started with Alex and Logan. So they had Leah on for their episode 2 in Jeddah as their special guest. And it was interesting just seeing her talk about the big differences between rally and single seaters, and how she even said she only did a little bit of karting growing up. So this is all like completely new to her.
Yeah. So for her to qualify P7 on her first qualifying in a single seaters, that's very amazing. Again, she didn't have a great weekend, but some of it, like at least in the second race, not really her fault. So
no, and she was able to recover pretty well, which just kind of makes me excited to continue watching her.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's first race. We have to see how things go for her. But let's talk about someone who got really unlucky this weekend.
Dorian Vaughn. Yeah. She was absolutely amazing all weekend, completely out of this world. So good with how she qualified, with her in the race, especially race 1, holding everyone back the way that she did. She did so well in race 2, won race 2, and then didn't see the flags, didn't see the screens. Her team didn't tell her that the race was over, and ended up was at a 20-second penalty for taking the checkered flag twice, because she did not take that cool down lap because she thought she was still racing.
Yeah, like it's funny because I keep seeing people saying she won twice, which is like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, she got double pole and then double win, technically, if we ignore the fact of the flag issue.
Yeah.
But she had an amazing weekend, and it was really nice to see Luis being there at the end of the race to like, okay, I feel like I love when the teams, like F1 teams, go and support the F1 academy drivers. I think it's really nice.
And Lewis has always been a very vocal supporter, even last year when it wasn't being broadcast.
And I will say, I know it's not related, but I feel like there's this special connection between Mercedes and F1 Academy just because of Susie. But it's not really related in any way, but just because it's Susie. Yeah, I'm excited to see how she's going to do. Like, what if she's going to be the Max Verstappen of F1 Academy and win every race? And then we have the Dorian podcast, like, after every race, too.
I am excited, too, because we don't only get to watch her in F1 Academy. We also get to watch her in WEC. That'll be fun to see how they do with her team there. Team drive versus single-seaters.
I am excited because we do get to see her this year race in WEC. Like, go and see.
Yes.
That's pretty exciting. I'm excited that we are going to get to see every F1 Academy race live, and not just a live, like, actual video and not live timings, because let me tell you, last year I had no idea what was going on. Like, I will just wait until they will announce like actual results, because it's like I have no idea what's going on with these live timings. But then we also got lucky because we did get to see the last race and be there to see Marta win his title. So that's pretty exciting. Now, do you want to jump into WEC?
Let's jump into WEC.
I am just going to say something that you know exactly what I'm going to say, but seeing me
go for
the car, just my heart.
And he did well.
He did amazing. Him and two other drivers, but all three of them did amazing. I feel like it's great to see F1 drivers go to WEC, because I will say, like, outside of F1, WEC is my next favorite series, just because, I don't know, I feel like so many great drivers go to that series after F1. So, I mean, and if you think about it, like, it gives drivers a chance. If they are great and they are, like, world champions and they go there, that's amazing. But if they also didn't do as good in F1, they have a second chance. And I feel like the best example of this will always be Antonio Giovinazzi, like, winning the 24 hours of Le Mans after being, like, not the best in F1.
It sucked for him because I love that F1 is an engineering championship, because it's so interesting to see that dynamic of, like, amazing car and amazing driver like we have right now with Max and Red Bull. But it also sucks for those backmarker teams that aren't ever going to be in a position to make it up there. Antonio Giovinazzi, he has proven that he's a good driver. He just didn't have the best opportunity to showcase himself in F1, which is really unfortunate for him. So him being able to kind of turn around and stick it to everybody. I just won Le Mans in a Ferrari, and that was the first time Ferrari had won in a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like he needed it. I know it's a team effort, of course, but I feel like he needed it because the year before, in 2022, he did the first practice for Haas, actually in Austin, and he crashed on the first or second lap. So it was kind of like, and it's funny because I was there that day, and I had no idea what was going on, because it's like they start and, like, almost right away red flag, and I'm like, because I was sitting at a part there was, like, no screens or anything, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on in here. And then I Google it, and it's like I see that it was him crashing. I was like, oh, poor guy, like, he didn't need this happening to him. But he came back, and now he's a Le Mans winner. That's, something not everyone gets to say. It's one of the, I don't want to say the most important, but I want to say the most important race out there in motorsports. So,
well, it's part of the Triple Crown, the Monaco Grand Prix, 24-hour Le Mans, and the Indy 500. Winning one of those are, like, the races that people know. Non-motorsport people, like, know those kinds of things. Being able to say that I'm a Le Mans winner, an Indy 500 winner. Like, there have been multiple IndyCar drivers that value their Indy 500 win over their IndyCar championship win, because that's the most important thing. People may have things to say about him in F1, but they're never going to take away the fact that he won the 24-hour Le Mans.
Talking about drivers from F1 going to WEC, something I wanted to mention is that Aston Martin revived the project for a hypercar. This could mean nothing, but I always have that, that thing that I want Fernando going to WEC. So it's like, maybe this takes him. I'm not saying that if he goes to WEC, he's gonna go with Aston Martin, but hey, he's in the team, so why not, right? Yeah, and especially because they're planning to join in 2025, so hey, who knows?
Speaking of, 2025 wants and wishes, I saw a tweet saying that Sebastian Vettel was in talks for joining WEC in 2025. So imagine Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, and if Jenson Button does it again. Ooh, Max? You think Max is going to leave after this year for 2025?
No, he's going to sit until 2028.
But Seb, Fernando, and Jenson Button. Imagine that WEC team.
I will be a team.
Yeah. But
we'll be terrorizing the grid.
in the best way. But yeah, speaking of Jenson Button, though, his WEC race ended on a not so great turn with having to retire the car with 20 laps left of the race. Can you just imagine driving almost 10 hours, like rotating with your teammates to then 20 laps from the end?
Yeah.
Have to retire the car because something happened with the battery. And like when the driver, I don't know who it was that was in the car at that point, but when he was getting out, he had to like jump out very carefully and like jump very far because they didn't know how bad it was, and that would hurt real bad.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I feel like WEC is one of those series where it's like, man, getting like crashing right at the end. I know every race it's important, like for every series, but like when you've been driving for like 6 hours, just imagine like even the 24 hours, like you're at hour 23 and you crash and you're out of the race. Like I will start crying right there.
Well, someone's car, I don't know what team it was, but 2 laps left of the race, their car went down. So the other Hertz Joda of Callum Ilott, IndyCar driver, was able to bump up into second. But yeah, like those things happening right at the end, I don't know. I feel like if it was me, I'd want it to happen in the middle or near the beginning, because like you know how close you are. Like you're so close to that finish or that win or whatever it is for it to get taken away from you. And it's just...
Yeah, it sucks, but I mean... First race, there's still
more to go.
But now I wanted to mention, like, Porsche Penske had a great weekend because they got first and third place that they got.
First and third.
That's amazing. Like, of course, they had an amazing weekend. Only first race, but hey.
It's a good start. It's going to motivate the drivers and the teams by having such a successful start to the season.
It's funny that something, just circling back to it, every time I go into any social media and I get ads, because it's not even like an actual just regular post, it's like ads. The poster for WEC, it's all the F1, like former F1 drivers. And it's so funny how they're trying to market it that way. Like, hey, we have Mick, come with us. It's like, I'll go.
Well, watching some of the coverage, I didn't realize how many former F1 drivers were doing WEC. So like I was watching a video of this other team, and then Danny Kvyat just like walks into frame and joins them. So it's, and just going through the list of the entrants being like, oh, I recognize this from IndyCar, this from F1, this from wherever. And then something that made me want to pay more attention to WEC this year, other than Jenson Button, other than Mick Schumacher, was Valentino Rossi, MotoGP legend, is doing the full WEC calendar this year, which that
Lando's superhero.
My dad's superhero too. Like before I even like really got into motorsports, my dad's always been into MotoGP and bikes and everything of the sorts. So late 2000s, Valentino Rossi versus Casey Stoner was like in my house. Like I didn't really know what was going on. We were Team Rossi, and I still have a bucket hat. Okay, my sister has it now. But we have like all the old stuff. There's a giant print of Valentino Rossi in our basement. And so just knowing that all these amazing drivers and riders are coming to this series, and we're going to the Lone Star Le Mans, the 6-hour race in Austin later this year. So being able to see them ourselves is going to be absolutely amazing.
Like, I don't think you do, because I haven't heard you mention this, but you know how there's this game that's like Stewardle, which is like a Wordle, but for like guess the driver of the day. And
no,
well, it's Wordle, right? Which is like guess the word. So it's the same, but with F1 drivers. So I've been playing this thing for like months and months every day, and of course the drivers, I think it's like drivers who at least were in F1, I think in 2012, something like that. But then, of course, you get to go through so many drivers that you might not even remember they were in F1. And because of this game, I get to see how many people who were in F1 are in, like, WEC. Because it's like, I go through the list and it's like, I remember getting this one in like, Stewardle. Like, I remember seeing so many of them. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm so excited that we get to see a WEC race this year. Not at all related to the fact that we might meet Mick. Not at all. But
no, not at all related to the fact that I might meet Jensen. Not at all related to the fact that I might meet Valentino Rossi. It's purely for, you know what? No, let's be excited. We can be excited about all of that and the race, because
definitely.
Yeah. So speaking of MotoGP and our legend Valentino Rossi, MotoGP started up again this week, and something that they did for the first time last year was every single race on the calendar had a sprint race. So there was a 50% distance sprint race on a Saturday, and then the full race on a Sunday. And as we are all aware, sprint races get a heck of a lot of hate in F1 from fans and from certain drivers. Do not like them, Max Verstappen, because they say that it's you're going to figure out
necessary.
Yeah, it's not necessary, or you're just it's a shorter version of the race. Like, it's going to end the same way. Like, the sprint is just a mini version of the race. You're spoiling the race. Like, what's the point of the race if you have the sprint? Which in F1, I can see how that happens there, just because there's only so much that you can do with all the cars that are whatever. But shout out to Oscar Piastri for winning a sprint race last year. Lando Norris still hasn't done that. Sorry, Maria. Please cut that out. We're cutting that out. But yeah, shout out to Oscar winning a sprint race last year. But something that they've said is, like, most of all the other ones, Max won both. And in MotoGP, most of the races were not won by the same people that won the sprint races. And I don't know why it was more exciting or why I found that more exciting. I do love the F1 sprint races. Like, I'll watch any kind of race. I'll watch my neighbors like to race their little toddlers like to race in their cars down the street, and I'll watch them go around.
I love sprint races.
I love them too, because it's on it. Like, you can't hold back at all. Not that they necessarily hold back in other races, but you go and you hold back a little bit. You like push a little bit, you manage some stuff, but sprint race, you got to go. You're not stopping for pits. You're not doing whatever. Like, you got to go. You got to prove yourself.
Yep.
And MotoGP, it was always so interesting, like, watching that race. And it was always, even if the same driver did win, it didn't feel like you were watching a longer version of that same sprint race the next day. The races felt completely different. And I don't know why that is. I'm not mad about it. And I'm glad that they're doing it again this year, because I will always take the opportunity to watch more racing.
I have to say that I do not know a single thing about MotoGP. This is my first year that I'm starting to watch. So I'm watching, but I have no idea who you are, but I'm happy for you for winning. Like, that's all I can say right now.
When I watch it with my dad, I'm like, okay, can you explain this one other thing to me? Because the way they do their qualifying is interesting. Like, their qualifying, or at least it did last year. I don't know if it's changed this year. I haven't looked into it. But their practice results determined who had to do an extra round in qualifying. So if you scored high enough, like if you were fast enough in practice, you didn't have to do this one extra round in qualifying, which meant you had potentially other tires to choose from for your bike. So that was interesting. But yeah, we would watch it together. I'd be like, Dad, what's this? What's going on now? Who's this person? What's going on here? But yeah, MotoGP is definitely something I want to learn more about myself, because I've always liked watching it, but now I want to learn more about it and understand it a bit more. So thanks for joining me on the MotoGP hype train.
Yeah, I was telling you, like, when you asked me, because I told you I'm watching a race and you're like, Moto2, Moto3. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I didn't even know there was Moto2 and Moto3. Like, oh, okay. But yeah, I feel like it's exciting to learn. Even though it's still motorsports, it's a whole different thing. So I'm excited to get more into that, because that's exactly what I need right now to get into another motor series, you know.
You're welcome. Also, cool, fun thing about MotoGP, like, if it rains or whatever, something happens, they can't switch out the tires on the bike. So you just jump on a whole new bike with wet weather tires. So they'll literally go into the pits, jump off their bike onto a new one and go. And they don't have radio communication with their pits. So they have to rely on those pit boards that they're holding out to see where they're going, if they have penalties or whatever's going on. So it'll be interesting as well. Well, sometimes pit board people will not put certain information on there, or because of a different driver that's behind them, they don't want them to know something going on. So it's cool. Like, I'm excited to follow the whole season this year instead of just catching races here and there like I did last year.
What driver are you following for MotoGP?
Pecco Bagnaia. He won the championship last year. He got run over in one of the races last year, and still won the championship. He's just a very good rider. Him, Brad Binder, and Jorge Martin is a good one. The championship was going between Jorge Martin last year and Pecco Bagnaia, and it went down to the last race. So that was fun to watch. Fabio Gianantonio, or Digia as he's known, he crashed out during either the sprint or the main race. And for the way that he crashed, normally they like slide off into the gravel, but he was there in the middle of the track, and thankfully not a single soul hit him, which was good. But
yeah, I'm gonna say that my only references to MotoGP is Marc Marquez. That's all I know. And because I always see him, like, I follow him for the reason that I saw Max getting on his bike one day on his motorbike. So I'm like, oh, this guy. So I follow him.
Mark has done good things. He's not in my top list of people that I want to follow. Digia and another rider, Marco Bezzecchi, they are part of the VR46 racing team. So Valentino Rossi's racing team. They got to watch Rossi ride and then go to his racing school, racing team. And like now they race for his team. Some other cool info that I just wanted to mention real quick is in Moto America. So that's something that I learned about this week, which, you know, makes sense that it exists. There's a rider. Her name is Kayla Yakov. She is 16 years old. And this is her first year, and I think it's a superbike, and you have to be 16 to do it. So as soon as she turned 16 last year, she came up and was like being a third driver, test driver for this team. And their season started with the Daytona 200 over the weekend, and she qualified and finished ahead of both of her teammates who are a lot more experienced than she is and have obviously had more time. So it's pretty cool to see, you know, these young drivers, let alone young female riders, prove themselves in this sport and have that opportunity to grow and flourish. So I just wanted to mention her because that's some pretty cool stuff, being that good. She's been followed her entire career through the mini ones up into these regular bikes. And now that she has the opportunity to prove herself on like a bigger scale, she has been. So excited to see where things go for her.
Knowing that, I feel like it was a great weekend for drivers and riders who are getting into a series where they are not the most experienced one, because like then we had Kimi and then we had Leah, even though they didn't have like the most amazing weekends, but they still got to do amazing things given the fact that they are not the most experienced ones in their series. So that's pretty cool.
They got to prove, and they weren't finishing last. They were finishing pretty solidly. So just proving that how good that they are and how much better they will get by
the reason why they got the six.
Yeah. I will say Williams has done a really great job about making me want to like be invested in and interested in not just their F1 team, but also their Williams Driver Academy. Like they include them in so much, tell us so much about them, that if I see a Williams in any of these things, I'm like, yes, James Vowles has nurtured that little baby, and they are going to go from the nest and do good things.
Yeah, I feel like they are a team that make me feel like they actually care for the drivers, which you don't get to see often because, you know, it's a tough world for F1 drivers and just like any motorsport driver in general. But I feel like, and this can go related, of course, to the fact that we got to experience some things with Williams last year. For me, meeting James and seeing like we had this huge line of people wanting to meet him, and he, you know, it was like a one stage. This guy could have been like not at the pop-up and just doing things. And he was there, and like for every person that got to meet him, he was like asking like, how are you doing? Are you doing great? Where are you from? Like it could mean nothing, but at the same time, I feel like it tells a lot about a person. So I just feel
because you're like you said, he didn't have to do that. He's the team principal. Like, he has hundreds of other things that are also important, but he takes time out of his day to make sure that the fans feel appreciated. He takes the time out of his day to do these recaps over the races, to make sure he's promoting the Driver Academy drivers so that we care about them. Because I wouldn't have known anything about Leah Block without having to do my own research if James hadn't been like, hey, on the Williams things, you like Logan and Alex? Here are some other cool people that we're developing and bringing up too that you should care about. Yeah. So Williams does a really great job. And Franco like that's who. Too. In watching those F2 races, I was like, okay, it's him and someone else, Zach O'Sullivan, that are Williams drivers in F2. So I'm like, all right, these are two names that I know I want to look out for because James Vowles has made me care. I will say real quick, IndyCar did come back this weekend as well. So this was a very jam-packed weekend full of racing. Joseph Newgarden starting off the season well, so good on him. Something interesting about IndyCar that I also learned this weekend is that if you finish the race, you get points. So it doesn't matter where you finish, as long as that car crosses the line, you get points, which again, every point matters, right? So every championship point that you can get, and it's why IndyCar is always so close. So they'll do whatever it takes to kind of get that car back out there, which I think it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of debate over F1 and points and if they should go further down, all the way down, or whatever. It's interesting to see how a championship could work with points going all the way down to every finishing driver. Yeah, I'm just going to say that I'm excited that Pato finished P2 because that's my driver for IndyCar. I was happy to see Alexander Rossi is mine. He's my guy. So I think he's 7. He was in the top 10. The Aero McLaren team has been doing very well. I'm excited to see them go, and I'm excited to see them at the Indy 500 this year as well. Ooh, it's my first Indy 500. I'm excited, and I'm excited to take you there. It's also going to be fun for me to see it from a point of where I like care a little bit more about motorsports now, just because I've gone a couple times in the past, but I've gone for other things or haven't been that invested and that interested in who's driving. I would just pick a name that I recognize or a cool sounding name. But now that I care a little bit more and I'm a bit more knowledgeable, it's going to be really fun to go.
Oh, we have to mention that we're also going to, even though probably not watching the race, but we're going to the Detroit GP too. So that's exciting.
Yes.
I mean,
so that'll be.
We're doing like at least my first 2 Indy races, like 2 weekends in a row. So that's interesting. But for that one, we're going to live a whole different experience that we're going to get to tell later on when we come back from Detroit.
And we're doing that one with Maria as well. So that'll be fun. So some series that is back, most of them are off this upcoming weekend, but Formula E is back after taking like a 6-week break because one of their races got canceled. But Formula E was nice because it started earlier in January and it got me back in the racing mood, like bringing me back, easing me in and seeing a lot of former F1 drivers in there as well. It's just interesting how now that I'm expanding my interest into all these other series, how interconnected they all are and like how the drivers there's only 20 spots in Formula One, so you're going to do whatever you want, whatever you can to get that race spot. So they are in Sao Paulo, Brazil this weekend, racing the streets there. I'm very excited for that.
I'm excited to see, like, not necessarily this weekend, but like in this season, Stoffel Van Dorn for no other reason. Like, I've been following him for like since F1, but I just was not following Formula E like as much as I'm following this year. But just the fact that we got to meet him was like life-changing. So I'm like a huge Stoffel Van Dorn fan now. But I'm gonna say that I enjoy watching Formula E a lot. I'm still getting used to the sound of the cars because I don't dislike sound, but it's different and I have to get used to it.
It's also so loud on the broadcast as well. That's the frustrating part because you got to turn it up to hear the commentators over the cars, but then the cars are so loud. But after watching the first couple races, Pascal Wehrlein is the driver that I'm following this year. So I'm excited to see how he's going. But I really do like the Formula E qualifying format. I wish F1 did that because splitting it into the two groups. The top 4 from each of those groups go into like a knockout duels round. And it's like, that's just awesome. That's fun. Like, that's so exciting to watch. And it, like, I don't know. I do like F1 qualifying, but
it's just pretty okay, normal. Nothing crazy.
Yeah. But this one gives more of an opportunity for different drivers to have the opportunity to start further up the grid. And I feel like in the F1 series where it's an engineering series, they're not spec cars, it would be nice to see other drivers have the opportunity to potentially start further up the grid by having that mix up based on the championship order. So an odd versus even.
I have to say that
do it once.
My favorite thing about Formula E, and now that I'm going to mention it, I forgot the name, but they don't have DRS. They have the something to attack.
Oh,
what is
I think it's literally just called like attack mode or something.
Attack mode, isn't it? Like, yeah. Like, I feel like I just love the name.
Yeah.
Attack mode, like, I feel like it makes it more fun, even though it's just like basically DRS, but...
Well, the cool thing about it is that they have to activate it twice. Like, they have to do it twice within the race. And there's a certain amount of time that you can do it. I think it's like 8 minutes that you have that you can use attack mode. So however you want to split it is, like, you can split it however you want, or 4 minutes, I think it is. So you can split it 2 and 2, 1 and 3, 3 and 1. So it's, and it's just like you said, like being able to like hit attack mode. Like, it feels, I don't know, it makes it feel a bit more like fun.
Yeah.
And they have to like hit certain parts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like, this is, even though I followed a few other series last year, I feel like this is the first time that I'm actually following, like paying attention, because last year I think I was only actually like fully paying attention to F1 and then Formula Regional, which is where Kimi was driving.
Kimi.
Yeah, so those are the two that I was like following, like watching every race. But I mean, we added quite a few this year, so it's exciting to see like so many different things. And it's something that I will recommend to people because we do get to hear a lot lately about how, oh, F1 can be a little boring right now. But it's like, then I recommend people to really get into this other series because it's a lot of fun. Like a lot of things are happening. I feel like it's fun because you get to see, if you watch like F2 or like any feeder series, like all this driver grow and then at some point hopefully get to F1. So you get to say like, I get to see this guy develop like his talent to get to F1. And then if you watch WEC, it's like, man, this driver that was so great in F1 and now he's here. Like I feel like you get to see like before F1 and after F1, and it's just a lot of fun.
And then it's good because you also get to see different kinds of technology as well with Formula E, the full electric cars, with MotoGP, like their bikes. Like there's so many different types, and like WEC is different types of cars. They're not like the single seaters. So it's, I also recommend people, if you're finding F1 boring or whatever, to take a look at these other ones, especially if they're on, like, if you have whatever streaming services that they're on. If you have F1 TV Pro, like you can go back and watch the F2, F3, F1 Academy races when they're at a more convenient time for you, but check them out because there are lots of cool things happening in all of these series. Yeah. And it's good to kind of open up and explore something new.
I'm excited. I feel like so many things, like it's just the beginning and we're already seeing so many things in all these different series that I'm just really excited and looking forward to see how it's gonna end, especially because we get to go to a couple of races for different series other than F1 this year. So I'm just looking forward to it.
And some of these other series, it's good because they are, if you are wanting to attend races, but F1 can be very expensive to attend. Some of these are a lot more affordable than others. IndyCar is a very affordable race, especially you can get like paddock access and the race access for a quarter of the price of a regular GA F1 ticket. WEC was also very affordable in comparison to the F1 tickets. Like all these other series have opportunities to go visit if they're in your area, and most of them are a lot cheaper than F1.
Well, thank you for joining us on this first episode of Cool Down Vroom Extra Vroomies. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Cool Down Vroom Pod. That's Vroom with 3 O's, and on X as Cool Down Vroom. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please leave a review and we'll see you next time.